Hi everyone, thank you for attending this meetup. Great to see so many people in here, that's great. So I'll talk specifically about planning mode at Windsurf. Just a quick show of hands, did like people who actually use planning mode, can you raise your hand so I know?
Pardon me? Please raise your hand if what?
If you use planning mode with Windsurf or actually with any other AI tool that's similar, like you're familiar, you know what this is. Okay, there are few people, not the majority I would say, but I'll try to kind of make it interesting for you as well. But we'll try to make it at the same time more introductory for everybody. Okay, so very quickly about myself. I'm currently working at a startup called Reliza, which I co-founded in 2019. And we were doing DevOps things. Now we're more in cybersecurity area where we do supply chain security and asset management, digital asset management, which is like bills of materials. If you're familiar with that, I'll describe. By the way, is audio okay? Because I hear some, like, you hear me well? Okay, great. Because I hear some background, but I guess it's fine. Then next, I'm organizer of machine learning and AI auto and meetup group, which is like co-organizing the event. Just for me, again, if you could do show of hands, people who came from the meetup group, I would appreciate it. Awesome. Great to see you. So we'll try to make like more events, and I think I hope this one works out for you. Yeah, and then I like to travel, so this is my picture from the Pampa Pulido in Spain. Yeah, so I like to travel a lot. That's kind of my thing. Okay, so now let's talk about planning mode, and I'll start a little earlier. So I've been working with as a developer and then with AI tools for quite some time. So there was this concept that's called test-driven development. So who knows what this is? Cool. Okay, but I'll explain for everybody. So test-driven development is when you write tests first. So you don't have the code. You write the test case first, your unit test. And then you write the test and then it fails. So you start with something that doesn't work. And then on top of that, then you start writing code. And then at some point it works. So you start with a red failing test and you add code and then it becomes green. And this was the first, I can't tell you what year, but I put a reference maybe in Wikipedia, maybe you'll find like when exactly it appeared. So that was the very cool thing. And then on top of that, some people said, okay, we want more. So this is cool, but we want more. And they made this concept called behavior-driven development, BDD. So what's the difference in behavior-driven development? So test-driven development is just a unit case, a unit test case. So you write some code. But in BDD, you write actual human-readable string. There was a language called Jerkin, and there was a regular expression parser that translated that language to code, essentially, to test code. And that was also super cool because now you have this test case that you can actually show to non-technical people and they can sort of understand what your stuff is doing. And that was pretty much the state of the industry until now. And then there was this concept that I think I heard it in one of the lectures on Coursera or something, or edX, very long time ago. I tried to, when I was preparing for this meetup, I tried to research a little bit on this, but ChatGPT told me no, it's not a well-known concept. But I like it a lot. It's called dream-driven development. So dream-driven development is something that's actually the next step from BDD. is you imagine that you have something working, the whole module or any program or your whole system, and you kind of work around the rest of your code or your code base as if this specific thing is already working, but actually it doesn't exist. So this is what I call dream-driven development, and I think like at this time and age we're very, very close to that. Maybe that's where we are. So yeah, this dream castle is basically that. So what we're experiencing right now with AI, I think it's a real paradigm shift in this sense. So now kind of just remember all that what I was saying, but kind of put it in the background. And that's absolutely other perspective that I want to touch here is how we organize tasks as developers and as development leads and managers, depending on your position. So developer obtains tasks from some management system like Jira, ClickUp, Trello, a lot of those. And then how does developer actually work on this stuff? That's the question. So during my life in software development and in other industries, I experimented with a lot of task managers and productivity tools. And I'm actually in the group, I don't know if it's a majority group or minority, but I'm one of the people who uses text files normally for writing all the tasks. Because everything else, to me, appears inflexible, leads to like huge backlogs, and then I cannot manage. The advantage of the text file is I can just start a new one for any day, erase everything that happened before, or not do that. And it's very easy and simple to do. And as a reference to this talk, there was a blog post which was very popular 3 years ago. There was a guy who actually explained this concept in details, how he uses text files for productivity, and it gained it was very popular at the time. So I'm not saying that like a lot of people do other stuff, but this idea that you have a text file that actually manages all your work, it's a pretty interesting one, I would say, because text file is the most flexible. Like you cannot draw in there, but other than that, it's extremely flexible. Okay, so here comes the Windsurf planning mode. And essentially that's how I explain it. These are two of those concepts that I talked about before coming together. So it's dream-driven development plus the text files. And I'm kind of trying to be a very practical person, so I'll try to explain in practice how that works. So first of all, if you work with Windsurf, on the right side of the chat bar, there's this little thing. And if you click here, that will activate planning mode. That's all you need to do to activate it. That's very simple. That's cool. So the next thing, this is what we do. This is not sort of mandatory, is I just add a prompt to Cascade to create a directory called AI plans and put all my plans in there. And then I actually go and check in this directory in source control, like in Git, for collaboration and tracking and everything. If I don't do that, it creates all those plans in some weird location on my disk, and those are only for me. Like, Windsurf actually knows where they are, but other people don't. So that's one thing I do right away. And these are, by the way, the real, so this is our real open source project, which I also referenced. And you can actually find those exact files in the source control. So once you do those two things, the next one is you create a normal prompt. So as I mentioned, Reliza is working on software bills of materials. So software bills of materials is like a list of ingredients for your software. It lists every third-party component that you're using in your software, and this is needed for cybersecurity compliance analysis. Like you can detect vulnerabilities based on a lot of use cases. So what we do a system to organize it. So now that's a real feature that I actually, when preparing for this specific meetup, I kind of made a goal to write it, and I had very little time, like 2 days I think, or less. I had to also prepare slides and everything, so I made a goal to actually really create this feature. And the feature is basically we have some JSON standards to capture those S-bombs, which is usually how we exchange them. But for certain industries, specifically for medical devices, on top of those JSON files, they require human-readable S-bombs. And I know that CSV is easier, but I want Excel eventually. So I know I want to start with CSV once, but then I want to do Excel. So this is basically the prompt I set. And Cascade sort of didn't know pretty much, I mean, it had access to my code base, but none about that. And I just said, okay, I need a plan for adding export of human readable SBOM feature, starting from CSV and then Excel format. So that's sort of my dream prompt. And essentially that's the plan that it came up with. So first design the SBOM export feature interface, and then implement CSV, implement Excel, then test, and then document.
How's it different from if you just write that in the chat and ask for the same thing?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So the question was, how is this plan, like this whole plan thing, different if I just write in the chat? So instead of plan, I will just probably say I need a feature for human readable SBOM without the plan, right? And without the planning mode. So if I would, actually let's remember this question and then discuss it at the end, okay? I think it would be easier, because it would be easier for me to explain. The important part I want to mention here that actually this one doesn't buy me much at this point. Because it created an item that I need to design it, but how to design it I still don't know. That's actually important. And we'll touch, like, it is actually related to your question. And then now, when I have it, so here, you see it tells me I need interface. So now I actually know, because this is a existing product and it already has some interface. So what happens is this word interface actually guided me to the fact that I'm adding interfaces, and then I just looked at my interface and I pointed out that for this stage I needed to extend this specific interfaces that I already have. So this is like a handoff process between AI and me, where AI says, okay, you need an interface, and I was thinking, okay, I have this interface and I need something similar, but for human readable. So that's like a handoff process here. So I'm having this specific prompt now that I need something similar to this existing ones, that would actually return me the formatted versions. And then at this point, it starts doing actual job. So in my code, it actually created new endpoints for all those things, but now with CSV. And then, yeah, so here, kind of a little pause about the whole, again, I don't know if, so this I will explain for everyone. There was a guy named Dummy, who, and he was not actually the first one, but he expanded on the concept a lot, who created, so the concept is called the Dumming circle. And the way it works is you plan, then you do, then you check, then you act. So plan is basically, in the AI world, is your prompt. This is your plan. And then do is the actual execution. So do is when you do the work. So check, what Dumming actually called study, but the check is more popular version, is where you verify the work. And then act, so I work in management consulting. Act is usually understood as, in reality, as hiring or firing people, not necessarily permanently. So you can, for example, add hours, remove hours, or think that maybe you need extra help to do something, and then you move, or do nothing if you're happy, and then move to next cycle. So this is what, this concept, so Dumming essentially what he did, he took this concept, tried to sell it to US companies in, I think in 80s or something, and they said, no, we don't need it. And then he went to Japan, or even earlier than that, maybe 60s. I'm not sure. I put it like a Wikipedia article. And then he went to Japan and said, okay, do you want this? And they said yes. And then Japanese auto industry went ahead of American one. And then American companies said, okay, maybe it's a good thing also. And that's how this concept became very popular. And essentially the way I see the circle with the planning mode with AI, again, is plan is your task details, your prompt. And then for the do phase, you actually hand it off to AI. And AI has its own PDCA cycle, because if you actually read what the Windsurf AI cascade tells you, it actually expands, okay, I need to plan this, I need to go here, I need to, oh, it didn't work, okay, I'll redo this. So if you actually read about it, it goes through its own PDCA circle. And when it completes, what you do, you verify. And then you act. And what's your act in terms of AI? You can, again, you can be happy and do nothing and just move to the next circle. Or you can say, okay, it didn't work, I want to try a different model. So essentially you fire the model and you hire another model. Or you can say, okay, my prompts are off, maybe I need to rethink the way how I write prompts. So this is basically your act. And this is how you're moving through the whole thing, and then you eventually you update the plan to move to the next loop. Okay? So with that, let's get back a little bit. So I was at the phase where AI actually started doing the job and implemented a bunch of these endpoints that I needed for my project. Yeah. So AI agent has same loop. And then one thing it did at this point, it added this, so it implemented all the interfaces correctly, by the way, but then it added this bomb to CSV function, which is kind of the most important one. That converts my BOM, my bill of materials that existed, to CSV. And you see it gives me like accept changes or not, or I could refine it. So the way I work, so this is completely incorrect, by the way. No, not completely, but this is wrong. And I saw right away that it's wrong because, so I'll very briefly explain, because this bomb thing, it has components and then it has an array of components. And those fields are not, it's not even important that they're not correct, but they're not like the top level fields. I need to parse the bomb, get all the components. For every component, I need to like check those fields. And this function is completely wrong. Yeah?
Was it wrong because you gave it the wrong prompt?
The prompt, if you look at it, was like super generic. It didn't even, so this was the prompt. The prompt didn't say anything about that. It just said, I need this interface. And then it figured, okay, if you need this interface for CSV, then you need some function to convert stuff to CSV. And then it just came up with something. And even though it's completely wrong, I clicked accept. And the reason I clicked accept, because I'm actually happy with that, because I now have this function. So you remember this test-driven developer, behavior-driven development, and dream-driven development? So now I have the test case in my head, but still, which is failing. And I'm actually happy with that, because I know that all my changes need to go in here. So from a very abstract task, where I need a feature, I don't know where to start, how to go, and like what to do, I came to very specific place in my code, which I pretty much need to fix, and then the whole thing is going to work, which is, for me, is great. Yeah.
But you were still in planning mode. So where does planning and implementation, like, is there a line?
So the question was, where's the line between planning and implementation? Yeah, and I'll try to answer it. So here, just again, so when I added initial plan, I specifically said I need a plan. So the only thing it did is a plan file. And plan file is a markdown file, by the way. Nothing special. So it only added me this markdown file, which is cool. Okay? So now here, I said for the CS, so I already mentioned that I'm within my plan, and to realize the CSV implementation, I need this specific thing. So now it knows that I actually work on implementation for some specific task, and this is where it added the code. And it also added like those interfaces I'm just not showing here, but it added the actual endpoints, and they were good. And this function, so it added me a bunch of code changes where it said where I needed to accept or reject. So this is like the real implementation. I hope it answers your question.
But the planning mode, does that button make a difference?
The planning mode means that, so when it added this thing, it automatically, you see, it checks the marks in my markdown file.
So if you were not in planning mode, then this would not happen.
Then I would have access to this, yes. I would not have access to this. And what I did, so when I click, I hit accept here, but the next thing I said, add a task to fix this function. And it just, again, it did not do any implementation at this point. It didn't even know what I mean, but it added me this task. And now I know that I have a problem in this specific place, and I can come back to it later. And here we'll basically to another question that what's the difference between planning mode and usual? This is actually one of the crucial things here. So I added this task to fix it. Okay, And then I fixed it also with AI, but well, this is a little bit out of scope. So one thing where this is different is for more complex features, I can keep track where I am. So if I'm, yeah, I'll move to this slide later. I think it's better to discuss this one now. So benefit, yeah.
So for the task that it doesn't know what it is, did you yourself tell it, like, hey, cross out this task because it's done?
So for that task, actually, so the question was for the task that it didn't know what to do, whether I told the thing to actually cross it out or it did it itself. If I remember correctly, for this specific task, once it was fixed, I did tell it myself, yes, that it's now good. Yes. However, this thing it crossed out by itself, even though to me felt ambiguous in the beginning. But it realized, and when it added GraphQL interface, that this is kind of dumb. So the benefits. So for more complex projects, you get, so the important part, like if you looked at Andrei Karpati video, which was very popular, and I added as a reference to my slide as well, so AI can come up with any amount of code in very short amount of time. So the limit is the human who can review this code. So with planning mode, we can actually limit the scope of each task. And if you do it by task, then you can be granular about what you're reviewing. So managing the review cycle sizing is one benefit that I see, clear one. And handle context switching. So I can complete some of my tasks, and then some emergency happens, and I know where I am. Like I'm not lost. I know what still needs to be implemented, etc. Similar to this, I can actually hand it off partly done plan within team. Yeah?
Does it proceed one task at a time, or do you manage that?
So the question whether it goes one task at a time or can I manage it? I can manage this. But it's so if you don't manage, it kind of does its own thing. So again, for this specific example, it completed all those 3 tasks at the same time. I was happy with that, but that maybe not always will be the case. Also, you can actually go and edit this markdown file manually, which is also, so you don't even have to, I mean, it's up to you. It's just a markdown file. You can do any edits you want, and it will then, the agent will respect those edits. So you can do handoff within the team. And then this is actually a thing that I tried for this meetup. I was just curious. I said, okay, give me an estimate how long will it take me to implement this. And this is completely wrong, by the way, for story points, because they don't map one-to-one to man hours at all. I don't like story points, but I know that this is wrong. It just built me this thing for man hours, which is, this is reasonable, I would say. It's maybe too much, and I would like to do it better, but as a future potential, it may be better than developers doing estimates, from my experience. And yeah, so plan sharing options. So for teams or enterprise, they have conversation sharing, where you don't share only plans, you share the whole conversation, which is cool. And then what we do is we do source control, which I think is great. If your organization allows this, then keeping those markdowns in source control, I think, is the best. And again, there are just markdown files, which is text files with special formatting, which makes them very, very flexible. Yes.
How does it handle conflicts in case of plan sharing? So if you say a task is done versus your maybe your colleague says, no, this is not done, so.
Okay, so the question is how it handles conflicts for task sharing. So if you do conversation sharing, so this I actually haven't tried, but they, in the documentation, they say that it may not work very well. For this, so for Git, what we're doing, it's just standard Git mechanism. If you have a conflict in Git, you need to sort it out, that's it. And you will see it in, the advantage is actually you will see it not only in your source code, but you will see it in the task plan as well, which will give you semantic indication of where the conflict is. By the way, I would say it should not normally happen with a good project organization, but that's a different story. You should separate the tasks between people. You shouldn't work on the same task, or even on the same plan most of the time. Okay, we're almost out of time actually, but these are kind of my wishes for improvements. And some of them, like for the first one, Topic is going to present something like similar, is how it can be, mostly MCP stuff, how you can integrate it with Trello, etc. So for example, AI can ingest tasks from Jira or Trello, then make plans automatically, stuff like that. That's a possibility. Then what I mentioned, the tracking estimates, and then this is sort of like you can do some tasks already, but I would like a better documentation and a better like sense how more advanced task management can be done. Okay, bunch of references that I promised, like the slides will be public, so you can look at that. So this is the YouTube video I mentioned. This is the slides what I showed, where the plan that you can really actually see in our open source project, and I hope to complete it soon. Like I didn't have time. I completed the CSV feature, by the way, but not the Excel feature. Thank you very much.